first of all, I want to talk about just the beginning of stopping drinking alcohol, the beginning of what I consider to be just a great journey. You know, the second chance that I've had at my life, and it's something that's really I see it reflected again and again with the people that I speak to who've have managed to get away from it, who've managed to go 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and the longer you get into it, the more of a just a brilliant journey it becomes. So it was a member's question, and the question was, where do I start to stop drinking alcohol? And it is, you stop by stopping putting the stuff in your mouth. I mean, that's the only job that you do when you're stopping drinking alcohol. It's where everybody has to stop. There's no alternative. There's no other way of doing it rather than that. And then going through the motions, going through the just coping with life, coping with what you need to do in order to stay away from alcohol and to change your life from that perspective. Take a look at this. I want to show you, if I can get this up now. This is it's one of the first videos that I made. I think this was 3 weeks after I'd stopped drinking alcohol. Just have a look at this.
One of the biggest roadblocks that some people come across when they're attempting to stop drinking is actually making the first move, stepping across that imaginary line and asking themselves, how do I start to stop drinking? Some of the other questions that might come up might include, when should I stop? Where should I be when I stop? Should I tell my family? Should I tell my friends?
I feel like
do I
speeding it
really
up.
need to give up drinking? Perhaps I can just control it. Yes, I've controlled it before. I just drink on the weekends. I know where you're coming from. I've been there myself. I've gone through that control thing. I've tried to control my own drinking. And believe me, once you have a problem, there is no going back. You have to stop. And you have to stop for the rest of your life. How daunting does that sound? I mean,
Very daunting, eh?
Doing something for the rest of your life. This is one of the biggest stumbling blocks.
All right, I'm going to stop it there. Look, I think for me, it's just this whole. I find it very difficult to look at those earlier videos of myself because it's just I don't sound like me anymore. You know, I sound different. I sound very. I sound like where I was coming off 30 years of poisoning myself, poisoning my body, and that's where it was. I mean, when I stopped drinking, that was the first thing that I did was to set up a YouTube channel and to do everything that I'm doing now, to learn how to operate a camera, to learn how to do the audio, to edit, all of that stuff, and I can see it in myself, just the way I am, I suppose. But look, when you're stopping drinking alcohol, the first thing to do is you've got to get away from the drink. You've got to stop the booze. You've got to stop putting the stuff into your mouth, and there's no easy way of getting around that. It's as we say, a primary and binary decision. So you either do it or you don't. And not stopping includes all the efforts at moderation. You can moderate as much as you want, but it's still heading down that same path. I mean, you're reducing the amount of alcohol that's going into your system. That's one good thing. But the problem with moderation is that you are reducing your overall self-confidence, your self-esteem, because every time you fail, I mean, every time if you're moderating your alcohol and you continue to moderate your alcohol, then you wouldn't have a problem, or not as big of a problem as you have for most people when they go back to drinking. So because they fail at it, I mean, I've been through this hundreds of times. I said I stopped drinking alcohol or stopped smoking cigarettes maybe 100 times. And I kept going back. I moderated alcohol hundreds of times, all different ways of moderation. And every time you do it, you chip a little piece out of yourself. You chip a little piece out of your own self-worth, or your own view about your self-worth, because you cannot fail at something, especially something that is so akin to in our society, in our culture, to addiction, and to the way we look at alcoholism in general, the way that AA mentality, that side of things, that there's something wrong with you, that there's something insane about who you are and what you've done, that you're completely out of control. So even though you might not believe that fully about yourself, it's still there, and it's still chipping away at you. It's still a nagging voice in the back of your head, creating anxiety and fear and conflict within yourself. And that's difficult to get rid of. And the only way to do it is to push yourself through to stopping it altogether. It's the only way that you can stop that. It's the only way you can stop the bullshit, really. It's the only way you end the fight. You win the fight by ending it altogether, and you say, I'm not going to do this anymore. So one of the first things that you have to do, I think, is to prepare yourself mentally, physically, prepare your environment, prepare other people around you. And you try and get these things right. You try and get these things under control, a lot of things, while you're not under pressure, while you're not under the pressure of cravings and the discomfort and the uncertainty of change. Because as soon as you step across that threshold into the new journey, then the pressure starts. You've got the pressure building up of years, but you're used to handling that, and there's an easy way of handling it. You just get out of your face. Now you can't do that, so you need to have as many things as you can prepared. Prepare everything that you can. Don't wait too long. Indecision is the ultimate filibuster. It's that thing that just keeps. You've got this voice in the back of your head saying, "Oh, wait a week," and just chatting away there and causing you endless grief. Do you get what I mean? So, at the end of the day, there is no way of starting to stop drinking alcohol, but just to get on with it. Don't be broaching any excuse from yourself, from anyone else. No more stonewalling. There's one of the biggest things that you'll find is your ease of listening to other people. That somebody says to you, there's nothing wrong with a couple of beers, and it's easy to listen to that stuff if you're looking for an excuse to leave. That's what I've always said about commitment. You need to be 100% committed to this journey, because if you're not, it's in that 90, it's in the 1% that you will find all the excuses. You can be 99% committed, but you've got this nagging voice in your head that is looking for a way out, looking for that exit door. And once that door is opened, it's so easy to just run through it. Because again, you're talking about going into something which helps you to forget, which helps you to just to get out of your own head and not think about things. So it's time to get down to business once you step across that line, or before you do it. And that's one of the reasons why, when I'm trying to help somebody with the preparation stage, we try and help them as much as we can with as many different mindsets as we can, to put them in that frame of mind so that when they step across the line, that the fear is reduced as much as possible, and the excitement is up, So everyone's got a certain balance between excitement and and anxiety, and it's a natural part of change, and every change comes with a certain amount of ambivalence. So that indecisiveness. So that's what I'm saying about the commitment. You've got to be 100% committed, even though you've got a bit of ambivalence, and everyone's got it. Everyone's got a bit of doubt about the things that are going to happen, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. You know what's happened in the past. You know there are easy ways of not thinking about things and getting, as I said, out of your face, but you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So that is always going to cause you to have anxiety. So the more you can be prepared for that, the more mindsets, it's up here. 95% of the stuff is up in your head. And the more you can be prepared for that, the easier it's going to be for you. The more excited you can get yourself about the journey and where you're going to go, what you're going to do, how you're going to get there, what's waiting for you, the easier it's going to be. So, remember that the clock is ticking for all of us. Everyone's got the same 24 hours in the day, the same 7 days a week. If you don't do it now, when are you going to do it? And it is a question of forging ahead, putting up with the bullshit, putting up with the crap. Get some help. Get someone to help you to get onto the right path. And then once you're on that path, keep plowing forwards. Have that perseverance. You need these things. You need perseverance, you need patience, you need to have a good dose of positivity, but you also need to have perspective, focus. These things are difficult in the beginning because, as I said, you're coming from the perspective of the drinker's brain, and it's just difficult to get away from that. But it's one of those things where you have to knuckle down and keep your eye on the prize, keep your eye on where you want to go, So, again, if you want to ask questions on this one, you have to you can join down below. Hey, Chris, thanks very much for the super chat. Really appreciate that. We're trying to get up to 50,000 subscribers as well, so you will make me very happy if you haven't subscribed, to subscribe to our channel. Really helps out a lot as well. I mean, I don't know anything about the algorithms, but apparently the algorithms like to have subscribers, and I don't know, maybe there's going to be some windfall or something when we get to 50,000 subscribers. Maybe I don't know, did they send me a coat or something, or a new hat? I don't know. All right, the next part of this that I want to talk about, just 1 second, I'm going to get some water because I'm feeling very thirsty. All right. ADMC, thanks a million for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Cheers. The next part of this is called Reach Your Goals or Dig Your Shit Pit. Attitude is boss. Is again going back to trying to get you on that best path that I can get you on when you cross that line is to try and get the attitude in the right place. I'm not talking about this as, my mum used to always say to me, you've got an awful bad attitude. If I was cheeking her or answering her back, talking back to her and stuff like that, that was one of the things that she'd say. She was a Cockney, so she'd go, you've got a very bad attitude, like that to me. So I'm not talking about it like that. Its attitude is the general direction that your ideas are flowing, the general direction that whether you're positive. So the 4 P's again: perseverance, positivity, having some patience and perspective. So perspective that's the attitude that where you're taking yourself. But it's for me, it's how we look at alcohol as having fun. I was brought up this way. I think everyone is brought up this way in our culture, that to have fun in this culture, you go out and you have a few pints. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy that. I did. That was part of my youth. It was part of my 20s and my 30s and well into my 40s. But it was getting me into a lot of trouble. All the trouble that I had in my life was caused because of alcohol. But the fun was there as well. Now, did the alcohol cause the fun? I don't think so. I think the alcohol allowed a certain amount of, you let down your guard a little bit, and you it's one of those things that gives and takes at the same time. Like I said, when I started out first on this journey, I was very shy, so going into bars and stuff for me was a nightmare. And if it wasn't for having a few pints, I probably wouldn't have gone in, which was, in retrospect, a good thing. But the problem with that is that you're short-circuiting your learning processes. So you're supposed to learn how to deal with shyness, how to deal with other people, how to communicate, interact, as a natural process, as a natural part of growing up. And when you take the instant gratification way out, you're never learning that. You learn it in certain circumstances because you have to, so in the workplace and stuff like that. But all of these things interact with each other. So when you learn in a certain way that you can drink or take a drug and you can alter your mindset, and it's not that you learn how to be shy, you just don't give a fuck anymore. When you have a few pints in you, I just didn't give a shit. I didn't care what other people thought about me. And there's a lot to do in that, but at the same time, what you're doing is you're putting yourself into your mindset is in the wrong place. So you're not coming across as an adult. You're not trying to be an adult. You just don't care what you're doing. You don't care what other people think about what you're doing, but you don't care what you're doing either. There's a difference between now there's a big barrier between what I do and the way I want to come across. I think everyone has that. But when you're drunk, and when I was drunk, I didn't care. You'd be the loudest person in the bar. Obnoxious is a great word for, I suppose, my alcohol drinking. So I feel that as we're growing up, when you're a kid, you come into this world as a kid, as a toddler, as a young kid. I watch my granddaughter, I watch my sister's kids here, I watched my son growing up, and you see when they're young, when they're 5 and 6 and 7, and they know how to have fun. Everything is magical. Everything is about it's just a magical world for them. And then gradually over the years, all that's knocked out of you by school, by whatever, your parents. Everyone's telling you have to conform, you have to do this way, you have to do that way. And I feel like most people these days have been conned out of their fun by, we live in a consumer culture now. We live in an instant gratification culture where, I don't know, there's something missing. It's one of those things in my life that I've sort of come to be happy about, I suppose, in one way, is that there's so much in my life that I don't know, that I don't understand. I'm struggling in a lot of ways to understand certain parts. I understand habits, right? I understand how to change behaviors. I understand alcohol and looking at it from a certain perspective, right? I understand that because that's what I've been doing for the past 10 years with a clear mind. But there's so many different things that I look at people and I think, I wish I understood that. Like cryptocurrency is one of those. I wish I understood how to do that. 99.99% of things, of knowledge in the world, you're never going to understand. But the problem is that most people don't admit that. Most people will say to I know a little bit about everything. It's bullshit. There's so much knowledge out there that you don't understand. I know I'm drifting off here a little bit, but that fun aspect of things is a difficult one to understand as well when you stop. How to return to having fun, because you feel like the fun is being ripped out of you. That's the way you feel when you stop. So you step across that threshold. You've no longer got that way of letting your hair down, for want of a better word, better phrase. And yeah, it's a weird one. So it's a big learning process, a big experimentation process to find that again for yourself. And that's something that you can only do. Like I said, there's other people that can help you, and I try and point people in the right direction as much as I can in that sense. It's one of the things that I suppose is missing and will never come back when you don't drink alcohol, and that's to have that where you walk into a bar and you completely lose yourself in that atmosphere. I mean, I've done it with my family. I've done it with friends, so I suppose there's a certain element of that when you're not drinking. But there's a certain thing that you do, and I suppose it's an irresponsible, I don't know if that's the right word for it. There's a certain, you have that drunken feeling you just can't get anywhere else. I remember hearing Billy Connolly talking about this in a video a couple of years ago. And he was talking about the way you can walk into a bar and you can just, especially with fellas, I don't know what it's like to walk into a bar, obviously, with a load of women. I know what it's like to walk into a bar with a load of fellas, right? And just sit there and talk about shite and forget about everything else. You can't really do that without alcohol. And it's something, that's the only part of alcohol that I miss. But I don't miss it at the same time because I've supplanted it with things that are so much better for me, in the long-term perspective. So when I'm looking at it from the perspective of this is where I am now, this is where I want to go, and this is where I want to end up in my life, I think about things as well from the perspective of the great-great-grandfather legacy. And what that means is that the way you are now, the way I am, I'm a granddad. So I look at my granddaughter and I think, well, not only do I want to influence my son, but I want to influence my son in such a way that it also influences my granddaughter. And it influences her children and her children, because we're all influenced going back generations. And that's the only way to stop that from happening is to start with yourself. It's the only real place that you can affect any change in the world. Do you get what I mean? So that's one of those things that I look at in terms of, I suppose it's a much more grown up attitude than thinking, look, I want to go in and talk shite with my mates, At the end of the day, this is something that I used to do when I was younger. And like I said, but it's got me into a lot of trouble, and it hasn't got me anywhere in terms of where I want to be in my life. So, going back to the attitude again, attitude is always going to be your choice. So if you've got a really stinking, horrible, shitty attitude, it's a choice. If you've got a really healthy attitude, that's also your choice, and it's a choice to build those attitudes up, to build. When, like I said, when you start off first, you've got that drinker's brain and you've got everything else that goes with it. So you've got everything that goes with the drinker's habit, with that lifestyle. One of the best ways that I found of describing it was like a black hole that the alcohol habit is it eventually starts sucking in so much more of your life, and your life becomes constricted. And that's down to just an attitude, not it's just down to a way of looking at things. And it takes a while to extricate yourself from that and to put yourself into a different way of thinking. So, your thinking is going to make a huge difference to your life. It makes a huge difference to your life, whether you're happy in life or unhappy, whether you're positive or negative, whether you make changes in your life or don't make changes in your life. Whether, when you step across that line, you are definitely 100% going to have discomfort. It's going to make you feel uncomfortable. It's the nature of any big change. We like to sit on our arses and do fucking nothing and not make any changes. That's what makes us happiest, to sit and wallow, right? And when you get up and you push yourself to make a change, even though you know it's going to make a difference in your life, it's still in that frame of mind that it makes you feel uncomfortable. And the bigger the change, the more uncomfortable it's going to make you feel. So, like I said, the stopping drinking alcohol part is the easy part. It's all the changes that need to go in order to change your mind and to change the way you think about things. That's the tough part, and that's what takes you to have a good attitude, to change your life from a negative to a positive, to make all the pain go away, and for you to have a consistently contented life, if you get what I mean. So, this is not an external thing. It's nothing to do with anything outside of yourself, because it's always your choice. Even when I said earlier on about somebody saying, oh yeah, well, we're in a certain point here and it's all right just to have a few pints, don't worry about it. That's your choice as well. It's your choice to say, okay, yeah, I'll give in this time and I'll start again next week. You're the one that gives up the power all the time. You're the one that can take the power as well. And the power is always up here. The changes are always up here. When you don't change, it's always up in your mind. It's the choices that you make. It's up in your mind whether you grow or whether you wither. Whether you reach out for your goals or you continue to dig down into your own shit pit. You can't control what happens in your life. We had a conversation with this the other day about the thoughts coming up, and you can't control the initial thought. Nobody can control what comes in, but it's how you respond. That's the only way you control anything. So it's always down to your choice. Always down to your choice. It's just a way of it. All right. Again, if you haven't subscribed already, click on the subscribe button, because we're really trying to push up the. We're trying to fool the algorithms into thinking that we're offering something of value here. Okay. Have a little drink and then we'll move on to the third part. This one was from a comment, a pretty innocuous comment, but it's from what in Ireland we call a gobshite. I'm not going to mention this guy's name or his channel name, because I'm not going to give him I think he's a gobshite. But this guy said, cheers mate, I'm getting smashed tonight. He said, sure, I'll die 15 years before you will, but just consider the quality of life in your last 15 years compared to my party lifestyle with women and drugs and booze. And then he finishes it all off with, I win easily. It makes me laugh. Do you know why it makes me laugh? It makes me laugh because that is exactly the way I used to think. I used to think, I don't care, what you think about your teetotaler and drinking your bottle of, what was it in Ireland? We used to have Caliber, I think it was the alcohol-free, awful tasting stuff. But it was all awful tasting to me unless it was Guinness. So that was my drink. And that was my thing was I don't care, you know, I'm a meat eater. This is the way I am. And if it's not the way I am, then I don't care. And I win because it's my life. And this guy was watching a video on cravings, by the way. So cravings, when you stop drinking alcohol, how to overcome the cravings. So there's a guy who's saying, I'm going to get smashed tonight. And here's my life is going to be, I might die 15 years earlier than you, but my life is going to be so much better than yours. But I'm looking at this video to how to overcome the cravings. Right? This is the problem. This is the problem, is the further down the rabbit hole that you go, the further you dig down into your own shit pit, right? The less you can see the light, and the only thing that you can see is your own dark walls. Do you know what I mean? So it's just, as I say, it's that black hole where everything else is sucked in, and the only thing that matters anymore is the lifestyle that you're living, the instant gratification. Everything else is, you know, your life itself becomes stale and old. And I mean, from my experience, lazy, you know, and there was so much going on in my life back then that was bad and dragging me down. It was always destruction rather than construction. And it, you know, it wasn't as if I was trying to do these things. It wasn't as if I was trying to tear things down. You know, but you can't build. And this was something that I read. I was listening to an audiobook from the Dalai Lama, and it was one of the only things that really I took out of the whole audiobook, probably 6 or 7 hours. And he said that you can't build a strong, if you're building a house, you can't build a strong house on weak foundations. So if you're building a house on foundations of ice, I think that was his example, that's not going to last long. And that's the problem here. No matter what you try to do when you're in the middle of a drug habit, you're building on shit foundations, on horrible, weak foundations. So everything you do is going to collapse around you. Einstein said something about information is not knowledge. The only source of knowledge is experience, and you need experience to gain wisdom, which you know, as you can see quite plainly from this guy, he's lacking experience and wisdom from that perspective. You know, I don't know this guy. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's a woman or a man, to be honest with you, but I presume it's a man that's asking these questions, or that's making a comment like that. But look, you know, I've been there. I've had those. I've been trapped in those limiting thoughts. I've been trapped in that life of what I can only describe as learned helplessness, because it's something that you do to yourself. It's a self-handicapping. You know, alcohol is one of the few things that gets into your brain neat, to use an alcohol term. Doesn't dilute itself at all, gets straight through. There's a covering around your brain called the blood-brain barrier. I'm not sure what it is, to be honest with you. I mean, this is something, I don't know what, I mean, in my mind I see it as like the amniotic sac, but I think it's something completely different to that. But anyway, it's a filter. It's a filtering system that stops a lot of crap from your body, from the outside world, from getting into your brain, where it can do a lot of damage. So when alcohol gets through into your brain, it's just playing havoc with the, you know, you often hear people talking about that they're going to give you something which will redress the unbalance in your brain and create a balance in your brain. Well, they don't know what a balanced brain looks like. So, but the only thing is, you know that there is such a thing as a balanced brain, and there is such a thing as the balanced chemicals in your brain. There's a sort of a sweet spot that your brain gets into when you're working, and it helps you to work just on the best level that you can possibly do. Now, shove in some stuff that is used as a cleaner, you know, or as you can use it as a brain preserver. Funny enough, stick a brain into a jar of alcohol and see how long it lasts. A long, long, long time, but not in the way that you want it to last, because it won't operate properly. And see how it operates. It's not going to work anywhere near where you want it to work. So this is where life becomes alcohol or other instant sensations, and that's what your life becomes. It becomes shallow, oppressive, it becomes extremely confining, and ultimately, you know, as was pointed out by this hoot of a guy, this gobshite, in his comment, he was talking about prematurely terminating. His life was going to end by 15 years. I don't know where he got the 15 years from, but think about that. The problem with it is that most people think that, right, they're going to live this healthy life, or they're going to live this lifestyle of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and they'll live it to a certain point, and then it'll just go like that, and they'll be gone, right? That's not the way it works for most people. Some people will just have a massive heart attack and drop dead, but for most people, it's going to be a gradual decline, and it's a gradual decline which generally, you know, from everything that I've read, causes a lot of pain and anguish to the person who's going through it, but also to the person who is there. I mean, one of the first things that I read before I stopped drinking alcohol, one of the things that impacted me the most was a website called, what's the name of the place? The Immortal Alcoholic. And it was about a woman who was, it was basically a diary of this woman who was looking after her husband, who had end-stage liver cirrhosis. So his whole body was falling apart. And it was one post that I read from this woman that she said that she tried to go in, she went into the room, and I can't remember the guy's name, I'll call him Tom. She went into Tom's room in the morning, and she said she opened the door and she couldn't go in because of the smell that was coming off him. His liver wasn't metabolizing anymore, so it wasn't filtering anything. So it was all coming out through his skin and through his breath, and you know, he was just stinking. And that's one of the things that I imagine myself doing. I looked at myself in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, and I imagined my son coming in and seeing me in that state. And that mixture of disgust and fear and concern in his eyes. Even now, when I'm thinking about it, it's like, oh, it's strong emotion. But that's what happens to most people when they go through what, you know, because it's a gradual decline. It's not something that happens overnight. I mean, you wish it will happen overnight, and that's the end of days. Right? I want to get to the end of my life with a life well lived, with a lot of life experiencing life in as many ways as I possibly can. And I've already done all the drugs and stuff, and I wish I hadn't done it because it never gave me anything of any value. Like I said, the end of alcohol-soaked days are not pretty. Think of alcoholic cardiomyopathy, saggy heart. Think of Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome, when you can't remember 5 minutes before what you did. You know, he began this statement off with, "Oh, I'm getting smashed." You know, how prophetic is that? That a guy is, I mean, that's the way I used to talk. I'm going to go get out my head, but getting smashed. You know, literally. That's literally what he's doing to himself, smashing himself from the outside, from the inside out, and from the outside in as well, because, you know, who's going to put up with all that kind of stuff? So, and the worst part of all this is that it's self-inflicted. So, I'm going to end it here for today anyway. I'll leave a link down below the video for the last video, the old video, for anyone who might want to watch it. I don't know if you do. If you do, it's down below. And also, if anyone wants to come on to the show and have a 15-minute chat, have a quick chat, if I can help you in any way, if you've got any questions, you know, have a quick one-on-one session. You have to be on camera though. It'll be on a Zoom call, and it's going to go out on YouTube. So we're taking some names, and we've already got a couple of people that are interested in doing it. So, you know, if you want to do it, you can let me know at kevin@habitsunplugged.com. You don't have to be a member to have it, but members will be given priority. And yeah, if you haven't subscribed already, again, please subscribe, because it's really helps us with the algorithms. And I just want to see it go up to 50,000. You know, at the end of the day, I'd be a liar if I said, you know, we're nearly there. Ugh. So have a great week. As normal, we'll be posting, clicking up this video and posting it as well. And thank you for everyone who's for the super chats. I really appreciate that, and for everyone who's watched. So, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Thanks very much. Take care of yourself. I'm Kevin O'Hara for habitsv2.com. We help people to stop drinking alcohol and to get to that best possible version of themselves. Take care of yourself, and I'll speak to you again soon. Onwards and upwards.